Hey MGTOWs, this is Vincent. I've, as usual, I get this weird thing where I'm yawning my ass off at 7 in the evening and then I find myself getting up at 3:30 in the morning. So I finished breaking down some boxes and did a little vacuuming, and now that it's about 6:30ish, I'm going to take off to the store and get some groceries. And yeah, good times. Monday, my new washer will be delivered, and that'll be cool. So since then, the thing doesn't spin on high speed, so it just so it basically leaves your clothes just sopping wet. So I bought this this mop bucket, and I've been using the wringer on it to wring my clothes out, and then I toss them in the dryer. How hard is that? So anyway, I'm going to take off to the grocery store, because at early morning Saturday like this, anybody of the type of person that I don't like, they generally are still asleep, you know. But any other early risers, you know, people going camping and stuff like that, those are people I like. And so, yeah, those are the people I don't mind sharing the store with. So, yeah, good times. I just wanted to make an observation before I go, that it's interesting how women have a tendency to rewrite history and put it into this story, this fantasy that is totally bullshit, and then act and try to live as though that fantasy were real. And that is like completely crazy. Like basically women will live with you happily for like 7 or 8 years, and then when they decide to leave, they will reframe the entire last 7 years into something that it absolutely wasn't, right? In this case, in my case, my dad and I gave my younger sister a place to live for 7 friggin' years to keep her stupid ass from being homeless and ending up in a freaking gutter dead somewhere. And basically she reframed it in her squirrel cage brain, hamster wheel brain, that we only did that to make her miserable. And we don't like her, so therefore we gave her a place to live where she would be miserable, right? And then she, of course, left, you know, and just freaking ransacked my house, and righteously enraged, and then took it all and left, right? And it's crazy. It is absolutely freaking crazy. And there was a time when I was doing that for about a week and a half or 2 weeks, and that's when I when I missed out on buying before the big huge bull run on Bitcoins, and then the bull run broke and started dropping, and I realized I missed out. You know, at least I missed out on that bull run, and my face fell into my hands, and I just moaned, and and it was something. It was a reality of the world which I seriously started having troubles dealing with. In that case, my mind, my mind started producing scenarios of what would have happened if I had made the correct choice. If I had purchased Bitcoins for like $13 each before they ran up to $1,200 each, right? And I was like, and then like part of my mind just wouldn't let it go. I would be like studying permaculture with Jeff Lawton of Australia, the world's pretty much the world's expert in permaculture. Paul Wheaton is like a third, then there's Sepp Holzer and then Paul Wheaton. And it's, but Paul Wheaton, he's not totally focused on permaculture. He has to handle that whole big, huge Permies website and all of that stuff. But basically, I was like living in this crazy freaking world that didn't exist, studying permaculture and running around and seeing the world and doing all kinds of crazy shit, and my mind wouldn't let it go, and more of my attention was captured by the fantasy, and the less and less of my attention was focused on the real world and dealing with the real world, right? And I'm wondering, and it was something that was just so overwhelming that I just couldn't deal with it. And I'm wondering, when all of these women do this crap, this crazy reframing and rewriting of history and telling themselves a story of their life, and the story is complete BS, and yet they try to move into that world and live there. Now, if that's the case, did they suffer some kind of tremendous, horrendous, massive, insane, brutal disappointment like I suffered, or is some other mechanism at work? Is it that they find their lives to be so distasteful and so unappealing that they have to create a fake reality and tell themselves a fake story and then try to live as if that story were true? Talk about dysfunctional. It costs women tremendous wealth and assistance from men, and the ability to plan long term and save money and all that stuff to basically live a decent life in their older age. And it costs, and when they live in a fantasy that isn't real, they can't really function efficiently and well in the real world. So the life that they have, the real life that they're trying to avoid, isn't as good as it could be. They could have vastly better lives than they do if they would just get off their butts, stop living in a friggin' fantasy, and actually deal with reality. And it's so I'm wondering, what is it that is so crazy distasteful about their lives that prompts them to want to live in a fantasy and tell themselves and everyone and insist to everyone else around them that fantasy is real? How bad can their lives be for them to for them to really decide, or at least act that way. How their lives must really suck if they actually tried to live in a fantasy instead of reality. And in my case, with the Bitcoin thing, and after I finished grieving and the fact that I had missed out, and then I basically realized I had a problem, because I was like living in a fantasy, and I was not as efficient at work. I was not as efficient in my life, and I was neglecting my real life as I just sat there in my computer chair living in a world that didn't exist. And it's and I'm wondering, and so I realized I had a problem. So that is when I realized, okay, I have to stop this. So it took a lot of effort to stop. Every time my mind would drift to the fantasy, I would have to like wrench it back and let the fantasy go and concentrate on actual reality. And then I sighed sadly, rolled up my sleeves and went to work. And I just started, stacking those Bitcoins. And even though we were in a bear market, and every month that went by, I would the price would be lower, and then I just kept buying and buying, and eventually, after about 6 years or so, I was ready to retire. Although I could have retired in 2017 if I'd have sold everything, but I wasn't ready for the big bear market to hit. So I just sighed again and just kept stacking Bitcoins all through the bear market, and eventually I got there. It's not as fast as if I was one of those people, one of the 10% of people who can actually buy low and sell high and use puts and use stops and use margin and all that crap to try to suck money out of the overall market, basically taking money out of the pockets of everybody else in the market. Those people are able to do that. I was never able to do that. So basically, so I didn't. I just treated Bitcoin like another kind of silver. So basically, I had to wrench myself back to reality. And as a result, since I did, I have a better life. And I could concentrate more when I got this whole cancer thing, and do more research and really cut back on the carbs, and really play the game seriously. The life, sure, it's a game, but and it might not be real. People say it's a simulation and whatnot, but it's life, and I want a better life than I would like a good life instead of a shitty life, right? So therefore, I work and maintain it, and I will not allow myself to retreat into fantasy and stop maintaining my life. So how bad must it be for women to prompt them to neglect reality and live in a fantasy like so many of them do? So that's my question. Have a good day, MGTOWs, and don't get married.